Savannah Carter stood in her childhood bedroom, staring at the wedding dress hanging on the closet door. Not white this time. Her parents said she'd lost that right. The champagne silk caught the afternoon light, expensive and cold. Downstairs, her mother was finalizing arrangements with Cole Maddox's people, a crime boss. They were selling her to a crime boss to save themselves from bankruptcy. Her hand shook as she touched the fabric. She'd already survived one man who treated her like property. Now they were handing her to someone infinitely more dangerous. If you're hooked, stay until the end. You won't believe where this goes. Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far Savannah's story travels. The return home should have felt like relief. Savannah had imagined it differently during those final weeks with Preston. Pictured her childhood bedroom with its bay windows overlooking the garden, her mother's rose bushes, the familiar creak of the third stair. She'd told herself that once the divorce papers were signed, once she was free of that suffocating mansion in Charleston and Preston's cutting remarks, she could finally breathe again. She'd been wrong about a lot of things. Her father didn't look up from his newspaper when she walked through the door. Her mother glanced at her overnight bag with the kind of expression usually reserved for tracking mud across white carpet. "You're here," Eleanor Carter said. "Not welcome home, or we've missed you." Just a flat statement of fact, delivered in the same tone she used with the housekeeping staff. "I'll stay in my old room," Savannah replied, keeping her voice steady. "Just until I figure things out." "Figure things out?" Her mother repeated the words like they were foreign. "Savannah, you're 32 years old. You should have had things figured out a decade ago." The sting was immediate and familiar. Savannah adjusted her grip on her bag and headed for the stairs, counting steps the way her therapist had taught her. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Don't engage, don't defend, don't give them ammunition. Her room looked smaller than she remembered. Someone had removed most of her things. The bookshelf was bare, her desk cleared. Only the bed and dresser remained, like a hotel room waiting for a guest who'd overstayed their welcome. She set her bag down and sat on the edge of the mattress, springs protesting under her weight. Through the window, she could see her mother's garden, still immaculate. Eleanor Carter tolerated no weeds, no imperfection, no deviation from the design she'd envisioned. Savannah understood that now in a way she hadn't before. The next 3 weeks unfolded with brutal consistency. Her father spoke to her only when necessary, usually to point out some task she'd failed to complete to his standards. Her mother's commentary was constant and cutting. Observations about Savannah's weight, her lack of prospects, the shame she'd brought on the family name by failing to make her marriage work. "Preston Hale comes from one of the finest families in Charleston," Eleanor reminded her at least once a day. "And you couldn't keep him happy for 5 years. What does that say about you?" Savannah had learned not to answer. Anything she said would be twisted, used against her, filed away for future reference. Preston had taught her that particular lesson well. She'd met Preston when she was 26, still believing her parents wanted what was best for her. He was 35, handsome in a calculated way, from old money that stretched back generations. Her father called him an excellent match. Her mother planned the wedding before Savannah had fully processed the proposal. The first year wasn't terrible. Preston was attentive in public, charming at dinner parties, everything her parents had promised. In private, he was different, distant, critical, always finding fault. By the second year, the criticism had edges. By the third, those edges drew blood. He never hit her. He was too smart for that, too aware of how things looked. Instead, he dismantled her piece by piece with words, told her she was lucky he'd married her despite her obvious flaws, reminded her that no one else would want someone so fundamentally inadequate, made sure she understood that everything she had, the house, the lifestyle, the social standing, existed because he allowed it. When she finally left, her parents didn't ask why. They didn't want to know about the years of calculated cruelty, the isolation, the systematic destruction of her confidence. They only cared that she'd embarrassed them, disrupted their social standing, proven herself as disappointing as they'd always suspected. "You could have tried harder," her mother said over breakfast one morning, not looking up from her grapefruit. "Marriage requires effort, Savannah. Compromise." "I tried." The words came out before Savannah could stop them. "For years I tried." "Not hard enough, apparently." Savannah's father cleared his throat. His signal that the conversation was over had become too unpleasant for the breakfast table. They finished their meal in silence. That afternoon, Savannah found her mother in the garden, deadheading roses with surgical precision. "I'm looking for work," Savannah said. "I have some savings. I'll be out of your way soon." Eleanor snipped a wilted bloom, dropped it in her basket. "What kind of work do you imagine you're qualified for?" "I have a degree, a bachelor's in art history from a mid-tier liberal arts college, which you completed over a decade ago." "You've never held a job, Savannah. You went from our house to Preston's. What exactly do you plan to tell employers when they ask about your work experience?" The words landed like individual blows, each one precise and deliberate. Savannah's savings amounted to $8,000, money she'd squirreled away from her household allowance over the years, small amounts Preston never noticed. In her mother's world, it was nothing, barely enough for first and last month's rent on a decent apartment. "I'll figure it out," Savannah said. "Yes, I'm sure you will, just like you figured out your marriage." That night, Savannah lay in her childhood bed and stared at the ceiling, fighting the familiar weight in her chest. The same feeling she had had in Charleston, watching Preston's Mercedes pull into the driveway each evening, knowing she had hours of silent criticism ahead. She'd left one prison and walked straight into another. Her phone buzzed, a text from Hannah, her only real friend from the Preston years. "How's home?" Savannah typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on, "About what I expected. That bad?" "Worse." "Want to get coffee tomorrow?" Savannah did. But coffee meant gas money she didn't have, meant explaining to her parents where she was going, meant watching Hannah pretend not to notice how far Savannah had fallen. She turned off her phone instead. The intervention came on a Tuesday evening. Savannah was reading in her room when her father knocked. A perfunctory sound, barely a warning before he opened the door. Her mother stood behind him, her expression unreadable. "Come downstairs," her father said. "We need to discuss something." The living room had been arranged for serious conversation. Her father in his leather chair, her mother on the sofa, a single armchair positioned opposite them like a defendant's seat. Savannah sat, hands folded in her lap, and waited. "Your mother and I have been discussing your situation," her father began. Richard Carter had made his fortune in real estate development, building subdivisions throughout North Carolina. He spoke the same way he negotiated contracts, direct, unemotional, with all variables already calculated. "We've concluded that you need guidance, structure." "I'm looking for work," Savannah said. "I've submitted applications to positions you're unqualified for, using a resume that screams housewife with no practical experience." Her mother's tone was crisp. "Be realistic, Savannah. No one is going to hire you for anything more than retail work, and you can't support yourself on those wages." "Then I'll work 2 jobs. Her father made a dismissive sound. "That's not acceptable. The Carter name means something in this community. We won't have our daughter working behind a cash register at Target. But you'll have me living in my childhood bedroom at 32? "Watch your tone." Her mother's words cracked across the room. "We're trying to help you." "We have a solution," her father continued, as if Savannah hadn't spoken. "An opportunity that would resolve several problems at once." Savannah's stomach twisted. She knew that tone, that careful phrasing, heard the same calculated presentation before her engagement to Preston. "We've been approached by a business associate," her father said, "a very successful man, though perhaps not from traditional circles. He's looking to establish certain social connections, and we've suggested an arrangement that would benefit everyone involved." "You want me to marry someone?" Savannah's voice came out flat, already knowing the answer. "His name is Cole Maddox," her mother said. "He's extremely wealthy, influential in ways that could help your father's current ventures. The marriage would be advantageous for all parties." "Who is he?" Her parents exchanged a glance. Her father cleared his throat. "Mr. Maddox operates several businesses in the area. Nightclubs, security firms, real estate holdings. He's a bit unconventional, but his financial position is unquestionable." Savannah had lived with her parents long enough to read between the lines. Unconventional meant criminal. Security firms meant protection rackets. Nightclubs meant money laundering. They were trying to sell her to a gangster. "No," she said. "This isn't a request, Savannah." Her father's tone hardened. "We're facing significant financial pressure. The Riverside development fell through, and we have considerable debts. Mr. Maddox has offered to restructure those debts in exchange for this alliance." "Alliance?" Savannah tasted bile. You mean my hand in marriage. You're trading me like a business asset. Don't be dramatic, her mother snapped. You're in no position to be selective. Look at yourself, divorced, broke, living off our charity. Preston was your chance at a good life, and you threw it away. Now we're offering you another opportunity, and you should be grateful. Grateful that you're selling me to a criminal? Mr. Maddox is a legitimate businessman. Who needs to buy a wife from a desperate family to get social acceptance? Savannah stood. The answer is no. Find another way to save yourselves. Sit down. Her father's voice carried the authority that had cowed her throughout childhood. This discussion isn't over. Yes, it is. She made it to the stairs before her mother's words stopped her. If you refuse, you'll leave this house with nothing. No money, no support, no family. Is that what you want? To be completely alone? Savannah turned. Her mother stood at the base of the stairs, perfectly composed except for the slight tension around her mouth. I've been alone since I came back, Savannah said quietly. At least this way I'd be honest about it. She went to her room and locked the door, then sat on the bed with her hands pressed against her face, trying to breathe through the panic. $8,000. Her car needed new tires. She had no job, no prospects, no place to go. Preston's voice echoed in her head, the same words he'd said whenever she threatened to leave. You think you can make it out there alone? You're nothing without me. Her parents were calling that bluff. The next morning, she found her mother in the kitchen, arranging orchids in a crystal vase. How much time do I have? Savannah asked. Eleanor didn't look up. For what? To leave, before you throw me out. Her mother adjusted a stem, stepped back to examine her work. Your father and I discussed it last night. We'll give you until the end of the week to reconsider Mr. Maddox's proposal. After that, we expect you to make other arrangements. 4 days. 3, actually. Today's Wednesday. Savannah spent that day making phone calls. Hannah offered her couch, but she had 2 roommates in a 1-bedroom apartment and could only host for a week, maybe 2. Savannah's college friend in Raleigh had just lost her job. Her aunt in Virginia hadn't returned her call in 3 years. She applied to 17 jobs, retail, reception, administrative assistant positions that required 2 years of experience she didn't have. Updated her resume 3 times, each version making her sound more desperate than the last. By Thursday afternoon, she had 2 interview callbacks, both for minimum wage positions that wouldn't cover rent anywhere in the city. That evening, her father knocked on her door again. Mr. Maddox would like to meet you, he said. Tomorrow evening, dinner at the Capitol Club. Your mother will help you select appropriate attire. I didn't agree to this. You didn't refuse either. Consider it a courtesy meeting, no commitment required, just dinner. Savannah wanted to refuse, wanted to tell him exactly what she thought of being paraded in front of some criminal like livestock at auction. But she looked around her empty room, thought about her dwindling options, and heard herself say, "What time?" Her father's expression didn't change, but something in his shoulders relaxed. 7 o'clock. We'll drive you. Friday arrived too quickly. Savannah's mother appeared in her doorway at 5 with a garment bag. This should fit, Eleanor said, laying the bag across the bed. It's conservative but elegant, appropriate for the venue. The dress was navy silk, sleeveless with a modest neckline and a hem that hit just below the knee. Expensive, the kind of thing Savannah had worn to charity functions with Preston, smiling and making small talk while dying inside. I have clothes, Savannah said. Nothing suitable. Her mother unzipped the bag, revealing matching shoes. Mr. Maddox is accustomed to a certain presentation. First impressions matter. To him or to you? Don't start, Savannah. Just put on the dress. An hour later, Savannah sat in the back of her father's Mercedes, the dress clinging to her ribs, her mother's perfume heavy in the enclosed space. Neither parent spoke during the drive to downtown. Her father's hands rested steady on the wheel. Her mother checked her lipstick in the visor mirror. The Capitol Club occupied the top floor of the oldest building in the financial district, all dark wood and leather, the kind of place that still required jackets for men and wouldn't seat you without a reservation made weeks in advance. Her father's name got them past the host immediately. The Maddox party, her father said. The host's expression flickered, just a moment of recognition, quickly smoothed. Of course, right this way. They were led to her private dining room at the back, windows overlooking the city lights. A man stood when they entered, and Savannah's first thought was that he looked nothing like she'd expected. Cole Maddox was tall, broad-shouldered, probably late 30s. Dark hair touched with gray at the temples, sharp features, expensive suit that fit like it had been made for him. But it was his eyes that caught her, dark, assessing, and completely unreadable. This was someone who revealed nothing he didn't choose to reveal. Richard, Eleanor. His voice was deep, controlled. Thank you for coming. Our pleasure, her father said, shaking hands. This is our daughter, Savannah. Cole's gaze shifted to her, and Savannah felt the weight of his assessment. Not leering, not appreciative, just careful, methodical observation. Like he was cataloging information, filing it away for later use. Miss Carter, he said, offering his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and brief. Savannah managed, Mr. Maddox. Cole, please, shall we sit? Dinner was a carefully orchestrated performance. Her parents carried most of the conversation, discussing business connections, mutual acquaintances, the details of the arrangement with the delicacy of people negotiating a merger. Cole listened more than he spoke, asking occasional questions, his attention moving between Savannah's parents with the focus of someone gathering intelligence. Savannah picked at her salmon and tried to disappear. Savannah just finalized her divorce, her mother said during dessert, as if discussing the weather. From Preston Hale. Perhaps you know the family? I know of them, Cole said. His gaze shifted to Savannah. My condolences on the end of your marriage. Thank you, Savannah managed, hating how small her voice sounded. Preston Hale is in finance, isn't he? Cole's tone was conversational, but something in the question felt pointed. I believe his firm handles investments for several prominent families. Yes, her father said. Very successful operation. I'm sure. Cole cut into his creme brulee with surgical precision. Though I understand they've had some regulatory scrutiny recently. Something about questionable accounting practices. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Her father's smile tightened. I wouldn't know about that, Richard said. Of course not. Cole's expression didn't change. I only mention it because due diligence matters in any business relationship. Background, character, that sort of thing. Wouldn't you agree? It took Savannah a moment to understand what was happening. Cole Maddox, criminal, gangster, whatever he was suggesting her ex-husband was corrupt, and doing it so politely that her father couldn't object without acknowledging the insult. Absolutely, her mother said, jumping in before Richard could respond. Which is why we're so pleased you've shown interest in Savannah. Your success speaks to your character. I appreciate that, Eleanor. Cole set down his fork. Though I should clarify something before we go further. Richard, you and I have discussed the business arrangements, the financial considerations, but I'd like to hear from Savannah directly. Every head turned toward her. Savannah's throat felt tight. What would you like to know? She asked. Whether you want to be here? The directness of it startled her. Her parents had spent the entire evening talking around her, about her, but never to her. Now this stranger was asking for her actual opinion. She glanced at her mother, saw the warning in Eleanor's eyes. It's complicated. Most things are. Cole leaned back in his chair, still watching her with that unreadable expression. Your parents have explained their situation. I'm in a position to help with that. And in exchange, they've suggested a marriage arrangement. Very practical, very straightforward. But none of that matters if you're opposed. I appreciate the consideration, Savannah said carefully, using the tone she'd perfected with Preston. Neutral, agreeable, empty of any real feeling. My parents have explained the benefits for everyone involved. That's not what I asked. Savannah met his eyes, saw something there she couldn't quite identify. Not sympathy. Cole Maddox didn't strike her as sympathetic, but maybe understanding, recognition of something familiar. No, she said quietly. I don't want to be here, but I also don't have a lot of options right now. Her mother made a small sound of protest. Her father's jaw tightened, but Cole just nodded. I appreciate your honesty, he said. So let me be equally direct. I'm not interested in forcing anyone into anything. If we move forward with this arrangement, it will be because you choose it, fully understanding what you're agreeing to. And what exactly am I agreeing to? The words came out sharper than Savannah intended, months of suppressed anger leaking through. A business transaction? A marriage in name only? What does Cole Maddox actually want from a wife he has to buy? The silence that followed was deafening. Her mother looked ready to faint. Her father's face had gone red. But Cole's expression didn't change. "That's a fair question," he said. "I want legitimacy, social acceptance in circles that have been closed to me because of my background and my business dealings. Your family name opens doors, mine can't. In exchange, I'm offering financial security and protection. The marriage would be real in legal terms, but I'm not expecting love or pretending this is a romance. You'd have your own space, your own life. I wouldn't control your decisions or interfere with your independence." "That's generous," Savannah said, hearing the bitterness in her own voice. "My last husband had different ideas about independence." Something flickered across Cole's face, there and gone so quickly she almost missed it. "I'm not your last husband," he said. "Savannah," her father warned. "No, let her speak." Cole's attention never left Savannah's face. "If we're doing this, we need to be clear with each other. No misunderstandings." Savannah's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her lap, hidden under the table. "I don't know you," she said. "I don't know what you do, not really. My parents talk about business ventures, but we both know that's not the whole story. So before I agree to anything, I need to understand exactly who I'd be marrying." "You'd be marrying someone dangerous," Cole said simply. "Someone with enemies. Someone who operates outside conventional society. I won't lie to you about that, but I keep my word and I protect what's mine. If you agree to this marriage, you'd have my protection and my resources. In return, you'd provide social legitimacy and play the role of my wife in public. That's the transaction." "Protection from what?" "From anyone who might use you to get to me. From your ex-husband if he causes problems. From your parents if they overstep." He glanced at Richard and Eleanor, who both looked uncomfortable. "From anything that might threaten your safety or peace of mind." "You make it sound like a bodyguard arrangement." "In some ways it is, but also a partnership. You help me achieve my goals, I help you achieve yours." He tilted his head slightly. "What are your goals, Savannah?" No one had asked her that in years. Preston had told her what her goals should be. Her parents had dictated what was acceptable, but no one had actually asked what she wanted. "I want freedom," she said finally. "Real freedom. To make my own choices, live my own life, not be controlled or criticized or made to feel worthless every day. I want to wake up without dread, go to sleep without anxiety. I want to matter. To be seen as a person, not a possession." Cole was quiet for a long moment, his gaze steady on her face. "Then we might be able to help each other," he said, "because I can give you all of that. The question is whether you trust me enough to try." Trust. Savannah almost laughed. She didn't trust anyone anymore. Certainly not a man she'd met an hour ago, a criminal who needed to buy respectability through marriage. But she also didn't trust her parents, didn't trust her ability to survive on her own, didn't trust that any other option would materialize in the next 24 hours. "I need time to think," she said. "Of course. Take whatever time you need." Cole pulled a card from his wallet, slid it across the table. "My personal number. Call me when you've decided or if you have more questions. No pressure from your parents, no timeline. Your choice." The card was heavy stock, simple black text, Cole Maddox and a phone number, nothing else. Savannah took it. The ride home was frigid. Her mother stared out the window, lips pressed into a thin line. Her father's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "That was embarrassing," Eleanor said finally. "Interrogating him like that, questioning his intentions?" "He didn't seem bothered," Savannah replied. "That's not the point. We're trying to salvage a desperate situation, and you're treating it like some kind of negotiation." "Isn't it?" Her father pulled into the driveway with more force than necessary. "You have until Monday morning. After that, we proceed without you." Savannah went to her room and sat on the bed, Cole's card between her fingers. Through the wall, she could hear her parents arguing in low, tense voices. She caught fragments. Ungrateful. No other options. Doesn't understand what's at stake. She looked at her phone. No messages except an automated reminder about a job application she'd submitted. She pulled up her bank account. $7,847.23. Maybe enough for 2 months of rent if she found the cheapest apartment in the worst neighborhood. Not enough for first and last month plus deposit. Not enough for a car repair if something broke. Not enough to truly start over. Preston's voice in her head. You're nothing without me. Her mother's voice. You should be grateful. Cole's voice, steady and direct. Your choice. Savannah lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling until the streetlights came on outside, casting shadows across the empty walls. Somewhere in the city, Cole Maddox was probably working, managing his empire, making the kind of decisions that kept people afraid of him. And here she was, 32 years old, sleeping in her childhood bedroom, weighing whether to marry a stranger to escape the wreckage of her life. When had she become this person? When had survival become her only ambition? She picked up her phone and stared at Cole's number for a long time before finally typing, I have more questions. His response came within 2 minutes. Tomorrow. I'll send a car at 10. Come alone. Savannah read the message 3 times, her heart hammering. This was probably stupid, possibly dangerous, definitely reckless. She typed back. Okay. The black SUV arrived at exactly 10 o'clock, idling in the driveway like a silent threat. Savannah watched from her bedroom window as her mother peered through the front curtains, then disappeared toward the kitchen with quick, agitated steps. Her father's voice rumbled from somewhere downstairs, indistinct but clearly displeased. Savannah grabbed her purse and headed down before either parent could intercept her. Where are you going? Eleanor emerged from the kitchen, coffee cup in hand, her expression sharp. Out. With Mr. Maddox? He's sending a car. I'm meeting him to discuss details. Her mother's mouth tightened. We should accompany you. These are delicate negotiations. He asked me to come alone. Savannah, you can't just... But Savannah was already out the door, moving quickly across the lawn before her mother's protests could gain traction. The driver was a broad-shouldered man in his 40s with graying hair and the kind of watchful stillness that suggested military background. He opened the rear door without a word. Ms. Carter, he said, his voice gravelly. That's me. The interior smelled like leather and something expensive she couldn't identify. The driver pulled away from the curb smoothly, and Savannah watched her parents' house recede in the side mirror, her mother standing on the front step, arms crossed, radiating disapproval even at this distance. Where are we going? Savannah asked. The driver's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. Mr. Maddox has an office downtown. Said you'd have questions. Figured privacy would be better. They drove in silence through residential streets that gave way to commercial districts, then into the warehouse area near the river. The SUV pulled up to a renovated brick building, the kind of place that had probably been a textile mill a century ago and now housed expensive lofts and artisan coffee shops on the ground floor. The driver led her through a side entrance past a security desk where 2 men nodded at him with obvious recognition, then up an elevator that required a keycard to access the top floor. The doors opened directly into a sprawling office space, exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river, furniture that managed to look both modern and timeless. Cole stood at the windows, phone to his ear, his back to the elevator. He gestured for her to wait, finished his conversation with a clipped handle it, then turned. You came, he said, pocketing his phone. You didn't really give me much choice. Come alone sounded less like an invitation and more like a summons. Something that might have been amusement crossed his face. Fair point. Coffee? Sure. He moved to a sleek coffee maker in the corner, the expensive kind that ground beans fresh for each cup. Savannah took the opportunity to study the space. No family photos, no personal touches, just abstract art that probably cost more than her car, and a desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of wood. Black or with something? Cole asked. Black's fine. He handed her a cup, gestured to a seating area near the windows. 2 leather chairs faced each other across a low table. Savannah sat, cradling the warm mug, and waited for him to start. Cole settled into the opposite chair, his movements economical and controlled. You said you had questions. Several. Then ask. Savannah took a breath. My parents are desperate. They're selling me to save themselves. I understand that part. What I don't understand is why you're buying. I told you last night. Social legitimacy, yes, but there are easier ways to get that. Donate to the right charities, join the right clubs, marry someone who actually wants to be married. Why this? Why me specifically? Cole set his coffee down, leaned back in his chair. You want the political answer or the real one? The real one. Your family name carries weight in certain circles. Old money, established connections, the kind of respectability that can't be bought with donations alone. Your father's development company works with city planners, zoning boards, people who control permits and approvals. Your mother sits on charity boards with wives of judges, councilmen, business owners. That's valuable. And I'm the key to all that? You're the door. Once I'm married to Richard Carter's daughter, I'm not just some criminal they whisper about. I'm family. Invitations that would never come my way suddenly appear. Conversations that would shut down when I enter a room keep going. It's access, Savannah. Pure and simple. The bluntness was almost refreshing after a lifetime of people dancing around uncomfortable truths. So I'm a trophy, a legitimacy trophy instead of a regular one, if you want to put it that way. How would you put it? Cole was quiet for a moment, his dark eyes studying her face. You're a strategic asset, but that doesn't mean I'm going to treat you like property. There's a difference between understanding someone's value and reducing them to it. Preston understood my value too, understood it right up until he didn't anymore. What happened with your ex-husband? The question was direct, almost invasive, but something in Cole's tone suggested genuine curiosity rather than prurient interest. Savannah took a sip of coffee, buying time to decide how much to share. He married me because I looked good on paper, she said finally. Right family, right education, right social connections. For a while I served my purpose. Then I stopped being useful, and he made sure I knew it. Useful how? Preston's family had money, but not respectability. Old Charleston society never fully accepted them. I was supposed to fix that, give him access to the right circles. But I wasn't good enough at it, wasn't charming enough, wasn't connected enough, wasn't perfect enough. And Preston doesn't tolerate imperfection. Cole's expression didn't change, but something in the set of his jaw shifted. He hurt you. It wasn't a question. Savannah met his gaze, wondering how much he could read in her face, how much she was giving away without meaning to. Not in ways that leave visible marks, she said quietly. Preston was too smart for that. Smart men can still be dangerous. Is that a warning about you? It's an observation about him. Cole leaned forward slightly. Does he know you're here, about this arrangement? I doubt it. I haven't spoken to Preston since the divorce was finalized. Why? Because men like that don't let go easily, especially when they see their ex-wife moving on to someone they perceive as competition. A chill ran down Savannah's spine. You think he'll cause problems? I think he'll try. Whether he succeeds depends on how serious he is and how stupid. Cole's tone was matter-of-fact, almost clinical. But that's something I can handle. What I need to know is whether you're prepared for the consequences of this decision. What consequences? Being married to me puts a target on your back. I have enemies, Savannah. People who'd love to find a weakness they could exploit. A wife is a weakness. Then why take one? Because the benefits outweigh the risks if I manage them correctly. But you need to understand what you're walking into. This isn't just about social appearances and family obligations. There will be times when your safety is a concern, when you'll need protection you didn't ask for, when my business will intrude on your life in ways you can't predict. Savannah looked out the window at the river below, watching sunlight glint off the water. Everything Cole was describing sounded terrifying, and somehow still better than going back to her parents' house. Better than the desperate scramble for minimum wage jobs. Better than the suffocating weight of having no options. Tell me about the practical details, she said. If I agree to this, what does my actual life look like? Cole seemed to relax slightly, as if her willingness to discuss logistics meant she was seriously considering his offer. You'd live in my house. It's secure, private, plenty of space. You'd have your own rooms, your own schedule. I travel frequently for business, sometimes for days at a time. When I'm home, we'd maintain appearances. Dinner together, public outings, the kind of things married couples do. But behind closed doors, your life is your own. And the marriage itself? Legal and binding. I need it to be legitimate for the social benefits to work. But I'm not expecting conjugal rights or romantic involvement. We're business partners in this, nothing more. Savannah felt something loosen in her chest. Preston had used sex as another form of control, another way to remind her that her body belonged to him, whether she wanted it or not. The idea of a marriage without that expectation felt almost too good to be true. "What about money?" she asked. "You'd have access to accounts in your name, enough to live comfortably, buy what you need, maintain the lifestyle expected of my wife. You wouldn't need to ask permission or justify expenses." "That's generous." "It's practical. I can't have you looking like you're struggling financially. That defeats the purpose." Cole paused. "There would be limits, obviously. You couldn't empty the accounts and run, but within reason, you'd have financial independence." "And if I want to leave? If this arrangement doesn't work out?" Something flickered across Cole's face. There and gone so quickly, she almost missed it. "Then we discuss it like adults. I'm not in the business of keeping prisoners, Savannah. If you're genuinely unhappy, if the situation becomes untenable, we'll figure out an exit strategy. But I'd ask for a real attempt first. At least a year to see if we can make it work." A year. 12 months of her life traded for security and freedom from her parents' house. It should have felt like a prison sentence. Instead, it felt like possibility. "What about other relationships?" The question came out before Savannah could second-guess it. "If this is a business arrangement, are we both free to pursue other connections?" Cole's expression went carefully neutral. "Discreet ones, maybe, after enough time has passed that we've established the marriage publicly, but nothing that would embarrass either of us or undermine the legitimacy we're building. This only works if people believe it's real." "So we're both expected to be faithful." "In public appearance, yes. What happens in private is between us to negotiate. But I won't have my wife publicly linked to other men. That's non-negotiable." The possessiveness in his tone should have set off alarm bells. Instead, Savannah found it almost reassuring. At least Cole was being honest about his expectations rather than hiding them behind romantic pretense. "I need to know more about you," she said. "My parents were deliberately vague about your business. If I'm going to marry you, I need to understand what that actually means." Cole stood, walked back to the windows. For a long moment, he was silent, his profile sharp against the bright morning light. "I run security operations throughout the state," he said finally. "Protection services for businesses and individuals who need discretion. I own several nightclubs and bars, a few restaurants, some real estate. On paper, everything's legitimate. In practice, there are aspects of my business that exist in gray areas." "Like what?" "Like making sure certain people pay their debts, like providing services that aren't strictly legal but are necessary for my clients, like maintaining relationships with individuals who operate outside the law." He turned to face her. "I'm not going to lie to you, Savannah. Some of what I do would horrify your parents. Some of it would get me arrested if the wrong people found the right evidence. But I operate within a code, and I keep my word. That's more than most so-called legitimate businessmen can say." "Have you killed anyone?" The question hung in the air between them. Cole's expression didn't change. "Yes," he said simply. Savannah's heart hammered against her ribs. "Recently? Does it matter?" "It might." "Then no, not recently, not in several years, and never anyone who didn't put themselves in that position through their own choices." He crossed back to his chair, sat down. "I'm not going to pretend I'm a good man by conventional standards, but I'm not a monster either. I protect what's mine, I honor my agreements, and I don't hurt people who don't threaten me first. That's the best I can offer." Savannah stared at him, trying to reconcile the calm, controlled man in front of her with the violence he'd just admitted to. Part of her wanted to run, to get back in that SUV and never look back. But another part, the part that had survived 5 years with Preston, that had learned to navigate cruelty with careful words and empty compliance, understood that Cole's honesty was more valuable than any pretty lies. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "You could have hidden it. Let me find out later when it was too late to back out." "Because I need you to go into this with your eyes open. If you marry me and then discover you can't live with what I do, with who I am, it creates problems for both of us. Better to know now. And if I can't live with it, then we end this conversation. I find another solution to my legitimacy problem, and you figure out your next move. No hard feelings." He made it sound so simple, like she actually had a choice. Like turning him down wouldn't mean going back to her parents' house with her tail between her legs, proving them right about her inability to survive on her own. Savannah set down her coffee cup, her hand steadier than she expected. I need a few days to think about this. Take whatever time you need. My father gave me until Monday morning to decide. Your father doesn't control this decision. I do, and I'm telling you to take the time you need. Cole pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. I'm having Marcus, the driver who brought you here, give you his number. If you need anything over the weekend, if you have more questions, or if your parents pressure you, call him. He'll get you to me. Why would I need that? Because I'm guessing your parents aren't going to take I need more time well. And if they push too hard, you should have an exit option. The phone buzzed in Savannah's purse, Marcus's number appearing as a new contact. The gesture was small but significant, a lifeline extended without being asked for. Thank you, she said quietly. Cole nodded, stood. Marcus will take you back whenever you're ready. Or if you'd rather not go home yet, he can drop you anywhere in the city. Savannah stood as well, suddenly unsure how to end this conversation. A handshake seemed too formal, but anything else felt too familiar. I'll call you, she said finally. One way or the other, before Monday. I'll wait to hear from you. The ride back was quiet. Marcus navigated traffic with the same calm efficiency he'd shown earlier, not asking questions, not offering conversation. Savannah watched the city pass by the window and tried to organize her thoughts into something coherent. She was considering marrying a man who'd admitted to killing people, a criminal who wanted to use her family name to legitimize his empire, someone who'd offered her freedom and protection but also danger and complicity in whatever gray area operations he ran, and somehow, impossibly, it still felt better than her other options. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Where have you been? Savannah ignored it. By the time Marcus pulled up to her parents' house, 3 more messages had arrived, each more irritated than the last. Savannah thanked Marcus and headed inside, bracing for the interrogation. Her mother was waiting in the living room, teacup in hand, posture rigid with barely contained anger. 4 hours, Eleanor said. You've been gone for 4 hours. What could you possibly have to discuss that requires 4 hours? We talked about the arrangement, the expectations, the practical details. And I need time to think about it. Her mother's teacup clinked against the saucer. Time to think. Savannah, we don't have time. Your father's creditors are calling daily. The bank is threatening foreclosure. We need an answer. Monday. I'll have an answer Monday. That's not good enough. It'll have to be. Savannah headed for the stairs, exhaustion settling into her bones. Cole said I should take the time I need, so I'm taking it. She locked herself in her room before her mother could follow, then spent the next hour lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling and trying to imagine what her life would look like as Cole Maddox's wife. That evening, she called Hannah. So, Hannah said, after Savannah had explained the situation, your parents want you to marry a mob boss to save their asses, and you're actually considering it? He's not technically a mob boss. Savannah, listen to yourself. I know how it sounds. Do you? Because from here it sounds insane. You just got out of one controlling marriage. Why would you jump straight into another one? Cole's not like Preston. You met him once. You have no idea what he's like. Savannah rolled onto her side, phone pressed to her ear. He was honest with me. More honest than anyone's been in years. And he's offering me a way out that doesn't involve sleeping on your couch and applying for jobs at Target. There's no shame in working retail while you figure things out. That's easy to say when you're not the one doing it. The words came out sharper than Savannah intended. I'm sorry, I'm tired, Han. Tired of being broke and desperate and watching my parents look at me like I'm this massive disappointment. At least with Cole, I'd have some breathing room to figure out what I actually want. Hannah was quiet for a long moment. What do you want? I don't know. I've spent so long doing what other people expected that I don't even know where to start. Then maybe that should be your priority. Not marrying another man who has expectations, but actually figuring out who you are outside of everyone else's demands. I can't afford that luxury right now. Savannah, I need to go. I'll call you later, okay? She hung up before Hannah could argue further, then turned off her phone and tried to sleep. But her mind kept circling back to Cole's office, to his steady gaze and direct answers, to the way he'd given her an out without making her feel weak for needing one. The weekend crawled by. Her parents alternated between icy silence and pointed comments about responsibility and gratitude. Savannah spent most of her time in her room, making lists of pros and cons that never seemed to add up to a clear answer. Sunday evening, she finally pulled out her phone and stared at Cole's number. Her thumb hovered over the call button for a full minute before she pressed it. He answered on the second ring. Savannah. I've made a decision, she said, her heart hammering. I'm listening. If the offer still stands, I'll marry you, but I have conditions. Tell me. I want it in writing that I'm financially independent, accounts in my name, no strings attached. And I want the freedom to leave if things don't work out, no matter what kind of public fallout it creates. Done. Just like that? Just like that. Anything else? Savannah took a breath. I need time before the marriage is anything more than a legal arrangement. If that changes eventually, fine. But I'm not ready for that now, and I need you to respect it. I already told you I'm not expecting that. People say a lot of things before they get what they want. I need to know you mean it. Cole was quiet for a moment. I mean it, Savannah. You have my word, and I'll put it in writing if that makes you feel safer. This is a business arrangement first. Anything beyond that would only happen if we both wanted it. Something in Savannah's chest loosened. Okay. Okay, you believe me? Or okay, you'll marry me? Both. Then we have an agreement. I'll have my lawyer draw up a contract tomorrow. You can review it, make changes, add whatever you need to feel protected. Once you sign it, we'll set a date. How soon? How soon do you want out of your parents' house? Yesterday. She could hear the slight smile in his voice. Then let's say 2 weeks. That gives us time to handle the legal paperwork and make appropriate arrangements. 2 weeks. 14 days until her entire life changed again. Savannah waited for the panic to set in, but instead felt only a strange, tentative relief. 2 weeks, she agreed. I'll send Marcus to pick you up tomorrow at 10. We'll meet with the lawyer, finalize the details. And Savannah? Yes? You made the right choice. After they hung up, Savannah sat in the darkening room and wondered if that was true. But at least she'd made a choice, taken control of something in her life instead of letting other people decide her fate. Tomorrow, she'd tell her parents. Tomorrow, she'd sign the contract that would bind her to Cole Maddox for at least a year, maybe longer. Tomorrow, she'd start the process of becoming someone's wife again, with all the complicated weight that carried. But tonight, for the first time in months, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she'd found a way forward that didn't involve slowly disappearing into nothing. She pulled out her phone and sent Hannah a text. I'm doing this. I know you think I'm crazy, but I'm doing it anyway. The response came quickly. Then I'll be here when you need me. Love you too. Savannah turned off her light and climbed into bed, listening to her parents moving around downstairs, their voices carrying through the old house. In 2 weeks, she wouldn't have to hear those voices anymore. Wouldn't have to see her mother's disappointed expression or her father's calculated assessments. In 2 weeks, she'd belong to someone else. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she fell asleep easier than she had in months. The morning she told her parents felt like walking into a courtroom to deliver her own sentence. Savannah found them at breakfast, her father already dressed for the office, her mother arranging grapefruit sections with surgical precision. The clink of silverware against china was the only sound until Savannah cleared her throat. I've made my decision about Cole's proposal, she said. Her father lowered his newspaper. Her mother's knife stilled against the fruit. I'm going to accept it, Savannah continued. We're meeting with his lawyer this morning to finalize the contract. The relief on her father's face was immediate and undisguised. Eleanor set down her knife, reached for her coffee cup with trembling hands. Thank heavens, her mother breathed. Savannah, you've made the right choice. This will solve everything. For you, maybe. Her mother's expression hardened. Don't be ungrateful. Mister, Maddox is offering you an extremely generous arrangement, more than you deserve after the disaster with Preston. I'm aware of what I'm getting into. Are you? Her father folded his newspaper with crisp movements. Because Cole Maddox is not a man to trifle with. If you agree to this marriage, you'll be expected to fulfill your obligations. No running away when things get difficult. No embarrassing scenes. No complaints to us about your choices. Something hot and sharp twisted in Savannah's chest. Don't worry. Once I'm married, I won't be bothering you at all. That's not what I meant. isn't it? Savannah met her father's gaze. You've made it clear I'm a burden, an embarrassment, a problem you need solved. Well, Cole's solving it. After the wedding, you can go back to pretending you only have one daughter. Her mother's face went pale. Savannah Marie Carter, you will not speak to your father that way. I'm leaving. Marcus is picking me up in 20 minutes. Savannah stood, her chair scraping against the hardwood. The wedding will be in 2 weeks. Cole's handling the arrangements. You'll receive an invitation. She left before either parent could respond, her hands shaking as she climbed the stairs to her room. Behind her, her mother's voice rose in sharp protest, her father's lower rumble cutting through it. Savannah closed her door and leaned against it, breathing hard. 2 weeks. She just had to survive 2 more weeks in this house. Marcus arrived exactly on time. Savannah watched from her window as her mother intercepted him on the driveway, clearly asking questions he deflected with professional courtesy. When Eleanor finally stepped back, frustration evident in every line of her body, Savannah grabbed her purse and headed out. Morning, Marcus said, opening the rear door. Is it always going to be like this? Savannah asked as she slid into the seat. My mother interrogating you every time you pick me up? Probably for a while. She'll get used to it. He pulled away from the curb, his eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror. Boss said you're signing papers today. That's the plan. Good. Place has been too quiet without a woman around. Savannah wasn't sure how to respond to that, so she stayed silent. They drove through morning traffic, past coffee shops filling with the breakfast crowd, past joggers and dog walkers and people heading to jobs they'd held for years. Normal people living normal lives. Nothing like what she was walking into. Cole's lawyer worked out of a renovated brownstone in the historical district. Marcus led her through a reception area decorated with understated wealth, original artwork, furniture that belonged in a museum, carpet so thick it swallowed sound. A young woman at the desk smiled and gestured toward a conference room where Cole was already waiting. He stood when she entered, dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than her car. You came. Did you think I wouldn't? Wasn't sure. He gestured to the chair beside him. David's running late. Traffic on I-40 was backed up from an accident. Savannah sat, acutely aware of the space between them. In the bright morning light streaming through the conference room windows, Cole looked different than he had in his office. Harder, somehow. The planes of his face more pronounced, the gray in his hair more visible. A man who'd lived through things that left marks. How'd your parents take the news? He asked. About as well as expected. My mother's relieved. My father's already planning how to leverage the connection. And you? I'm here, aren't I? Cole studied her for a moment, then reached across the table and slid a folder toward her. Preliminary contract. David will have the official version, but I wanted you to see the basics before he arrives. Make sure I didn't miss anything you asked for. Savannah opened the folder. 20 pages of legal language, dense and precise. She forced herself to read slowly, parsing through the clauses about financial arrangements, property rights, conditions for dissolution of the marriage. Everything she'd asked for was there. Joint accounts in her name with substantial initial deposits, a monthly allowance that made her throat tight when she saw the number, property rights that protected her if the marriage ended. A clause specifically stating that physical intimacy was not a requirement or expectation of the arrangement. This is generous, she said quietly. It's fair. You're giving me what I need. I'm giving you what you need. That's how partnerships work. Before Savannah could respond, the door opened. A man in his 60s entered, carrying a briefcase and radiating the kind of confidence that came from decades of high-stakes negotiations. Cole, Ms. Carter, my apologies for the delay. David Richardson set his briefcase on the table, snapped it open. I've prepared the final contract based on your specifications. Ms. Carter, I assume you've had time to review the preliminary version? Just now? Excellent. Then let's walk through the details. David pulled out a thicker document, pages flagged with colored tabs. This is a prenuptial agreement combined with a marriage contract. Unusual, but appropriate given the circumstances. Section 1 outlines financial arrangements. For the next hour, David walked them through every clause, every contingency, every protection built into the document. Savannah's head swam with terms like irrevocable trust and spousal maintenance provision and non-disclosure agreement. That last one made her pause. Non-disclosure about what? About the nature of Cole's business operations, David explained. You'll inevitably learn details about how he conducts certain transactions. This clause prevents you from sharing that information with law enforcement or media, even after the marriage ends. So I'm legally bound to keep his secrets. You're legally protected from being compelled to testify against him, David corrected. And yes, prohibited from voluntarily disclosing sensitive information. It's standard in arrangements like this. Arrangements like this, as if marrying criminals for social legitimacy was a common practice with established legal precedents. What if I witness something illegal? Savannah asked. Cole leaned forward. Then you tell me, and I handle it. You're not responsible for policing my business, Savannah. But I need to know you won't run to the authorities the first time you see something that makes you uncomfortable. And if someone gets hurt, if I see something that puts people in danger, that won't happen. You won't be exposed to that side of things. But if it does, then we'll discuss it. Cole's tone was firm. But this clause protects both of us. Without it, you become a liability I can't afford. Savannah looked down at the contract, at all the careful language designed to bind her into Cole's world while simultaneously protecting her from it. She thought about walking away, about telling them both this was too much, too complicated, too dangerous. Then she thought about going back to her parents' house, to her mother's cutting remarks, and her father's cold disappointment. Thought about the $7,847.23 in her bank account and the mounting certainty that no legitimate job would save her. Where do I sign? She asked. David showed her. 7 places throughout the document, her signature appearing next to Cole's, binding them together in black ink and legal terminology. When she signed the last page, her hand was steady. Congratulations, David said, gathering the papers. You're now contractually committed to marry Cole Maddox 2 weeks from today. I'll file the marriage license application this afternoon. The ceremony can take place at the courthouse or a private venue, your choice. Private, Cole said. My house. Small ceremony, just immediate family and a few key associates. And my friend Hannah, Savannah added. I want her there. Cole nodded. Of course. Give Marcus her information. He'll make sure she receives an invitation. After David left, Cole and Savannah sat in the quiet conference room, the signed contract between them like a third presence. How are you feeling? Cole asked. Like I just signed away my life. You didn't. You just redirected it. That's a generous interpretation. Cole stood, walked to the windows overlooking the street below. I know this isn't what you would have chosen in ideal circumstances, but you're getting something out of it too. Don't forget that. A freedom in exchange for legitimacy. Very transactional. Most marriages are when you strip away the romantic pretense. At least we're being honest about it. Savannah joined him at the window, watching pedestrians navigate the sidewalk below. What happens now? I go back to my parents' house and wait for the wedding? You could, or you could start moving your things to my place. Get settled before the ceremony. That seems fast. You said you wanted out of your parents' house. I'm offering you out. The idea was tempting. 2 more weeks of her mother's commentary versus living in Cole's house, having her own space, breathing air that wasn't heavy with judgment and disappointment. I don't have much to move, Savannah said. Most of my things are still in Charleston. Preston kept the house, kept everything in it. Then we'll get you new things, whatever you need. I can't afford. Yes, you can. Check your bank account. Savannah pulled out her phone, logged into her banking app. The balance made her breath catch. $50,000, deposited that morning with a memo that read, Monthly allowance, March. That's too much, she said. That's what my wife needs to maintain appropriate appearances. You'll receive the same amount on the 1st of every month. $600,000 a year. More money than she'd ever imagined having access to, dropping into her account like it was nothing. Savannah felt dizzy. I don't know what to do with that much money. Whatever you want. Buy clothes, furniture for your rooms, take trips if you need space. It's yours. Cole turned from the window, his expression serious. I meant what I said about independence, Savannah. I'm not going to monitor your spending or question your choices. The money gives you options. Use it however you need to. That afternoon, Marcus drove her back to her parents' house. Savannah packed her meager belongings into 3 suitcases, sorted through the few items worth keeping. Her mother appeared in the doorway as she was folding the last sweater. You're leaving already? Cole offered, and I accepted. The wedding isn't for 2 weeks. I know when my own wedding is, Mother. Eleanor stepped into the room, her expression troubled. Savannah, I know you're angry with us, with the situation, but this is a good opportunity, mister. Maddox can provide for you in ways Preston never could. Preston provided just fine. That wasn't the problem. Then what was? Savannah turned to face her mother fully. He made me feel worthless. Every single day, he found new ways to remind me I wasn't good enough, wasn't worth the effort it took to tolerate me. And you know what the worst part was? When I finally left him, you blamed me for it. Said I didn't try hard enough, didn't compromise enough. You took his side without even asking what happened. We didn't take sides. You absolutely did. You still are. Even now, you're more concerned about your financial problems than whether I'm walking into another bad situation. Her mother's face flushed. That's not fair. We're trying to help you. Help me? Or help yourselves? Savannah zipped her suitcase with more force than necessary. It doesn't matter. In 2 weeks, I'll be Cole's problem instead of yours. That's what you wanted, right? She left her mother standing in the doorway and carried her suitcases downstairs. Marcus was waiting by the SUV, and he took her bags without comment. Her father was nowhere to be seen, probably at the office, already leveraging his new connection to Cole Maddox for business advantages. The drive to Cole's house took 30 minutes, winding through increasingly exclusive neighborhoods until Marcus turned onto a private drive lined with old-growth trees. The house that appeared at the end was nothing like Savannah expected. No Gothic mansion, no ostentatious display of wealth. Instead, a modernist structure of glass and steel and warm wood, set back from the road and surrounded by carefully maintained grounds. Clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, architecture that suggested power through understatement rather than excess. Home, Marcus said, pulling up to the front entrance. A woman in her 50s appeared as they got out. Dark hair pulled back, dressed in casual but expensive clothes, her expression professionally friendly. Miss Carter, welcome. I'm Teresa, the house manager. Mr. Maddox asked me to show you to your rooms and help you get settled. Thank you. Teresa led her through the front door into an open foyer with a floating staircase and art that belonged in galleries. Everything was immaculate, carefully curated, distinctly masculine in its aesthetic. Mr. Maddox is out this afternoon, Teresa explained as they climbed the stairs. Business in Charlotte, won't be back until evening. He wanted to give you space to explore without feeling watched. Thoughtful, Savannah realized. Cole was being thoughtful about her comfort, giving her time to adjust to the space before having to navigate his presence in it. Teresa opened a door on the second floor, stepped aside. You're sweet. Savannah walked into what was essentially a luxury apartment within the house. Bedroom with a king-sized bed and more windows overlooking the gardens, sitting area with a fireplace and built-in bookshelves, bathroom with a soaking tub and walk-in shower, and a closet the size of her childhood bedroom. The sitting room connects to Mr. Maddox's suite through that door, Teresa pointed to a panel in the wall. It's locked from both sides. He wanted you to know you have complete privacy unless you choose otherwise. Thank you. I'll bring your suitcases up. Is there anything else you need right now? Food, something to drink? I'm fine, just need some time to process. Teresa nodded, understanding in her eyes. I'll be downstairs if you change your mind. Dinner's at 7 if you'd like to join Mr. Maddox, or I can bring something up to your room. After Teresa left, Savannah explored her new space, running her hands along expensive furniture, testing the water pressure in the shower, standing at the windows and looking out at grounds that stretched farther than she could see. This was hers now. Not borrowed, not conditional on good behavior or pleasing the right people. Hers by legal contract, protected by signatures and legal fees, and Cole's word that he'd honor the agreement. She unpacked slowly, hanging her modest wardrobe in the enormous closet where it looked lost and inadequate. Most of her clothes were years old, bought during her marriage to Preston when she'd had access to his money, but not the confidence to spend it freely. Now she had her own money, $50,000 sitting in her account, and no idea how to use it. Her phone buzzed with a text from Cole. Teresa said you're settling in. Let me know if you need anything. Savannah stared at the message, then typed back, Thank you for the space. For all of this. His response came quickly. It's your home now. Make it feel that way. She spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the house, living areas that flowed into each other with architectural grace, a kitchen that looked like something from a magazine, a library with leather chairs and books organized by subject rather than decoration, a gym in the basement, a pool beyond the back terrace, a garden that suggested professional maintenance. Cole lived well, very well. And now, inexplicably, so did she. At 7, Savannah changed into the nicest dress she owned, a simple black sheath that had survived the divorce, and went downstairs. Teresa had set the dining table for 2, candles lit even though it was still light outside, wine already poured. Cole appeared from his office, still in his suit but with his tie loosened, looking tired in a way she hadn't seen before. Whatever he'd been doing in Charlotte had taken something out of him. "You came down," he said, something like relief crossing his face. "You invited me. I also gave you the option to eat upstairs. I wasn't sure which you'd choose." Savannah took her seat. "Seemed rude to hide on my first night here. You're allowed to be rude, allowed to need space. This is an adjustment for both of us." Dinner was perfectly prepared. Some kind of chicken with herbs she couldn't identify, vegetables roasted to ideal tenderness, a salad with homemade dressing. They ate in careful conversation, feeling out the boundaries of this new dynamic. "How was Charlotte?" Savannah asked. "Productive. Complicated." Cole took a sip of wine. "There's a situation with one of my clubs. Employee skimming from the register thought he was being clever about it. Had to handle it." "Handle it how?" "Fired him, made sure he understood that stealing from me was a bad career move. He'll find work elsewhere, just not in this state." The casual way Cole discussed ruining someone's livelihood should have bothered her more than it did, but she found herself curious instead. What if he'd refused to leave? Then the consequences would have been more severe, but he was smart enough to take the out I offered. "You gave him an out?" "I always give people an out first. It's only when they refuse it that things get ugly." Savannah set down her fork. "Is that your philosophy in general, or just with business?" "In general. I believe in clear warnings and fair consequences. People who ignore both have made their choice. And what happens to people who make the wrong choice?" Cole met her gaze, his expression unreadable. "Depends on how wrong it was. Small infractions get small punishments. Betrayal, disloyalty, direct threats, those get handled permanently." There it was again, that casual acknowledgement of violence delivered in the same tone most people use to discuss the weather. Savannah should have been terrified. Instead, she felt something closer to fascination. "You really don't pretend, do you?" she said, "about who you are or what you do?" "Not with you. We're past that point." "Because of the contract?" "Because you asked for honesty, and I'm giving it to you. If that changes, if you need me to soften things or keep you separate from the reality of my work, tell me. But right now, I'm operating under the assumption that you'd rather know the truth." Savannah thought about Preston, who'd hidden his cruelty behind charm until it was too late to escape easily. Thought about her parents, who'd dressed up their selfishness in concern and duty. Cole's honesty was brutal, uncomfortable, sometimes frightening. It was also refreshing in a way she hadn't expected. "I do want the truth," she said, "even when it's hard to hear." Something shifted in Cole's expression. Approval, maybe, or respect. "Then we'll get along fine." After dinner, Cole returned to his office for calls he couldn't postpone. Savannah went back to her suite, changed into pajamas, and lay in the unfamiliar bed staring at the ceiling. Outside, the grounds were quiet, except for occasional sounds of nightbirds and wind in the trees. She pulled out her phone and found a message from Hannah. "How's the mansion? Send pictures." Savannah took a few photos. Her sitting room, the view from her windows, the ridiculous bathroom, sent them with the caption, "It's surreal." Hannah's response was immediate. "Holy shit, you landed in a different universe." "Feels like it." "You okay, though? Really okay?" Savannah thought about it, trying to identify what she was feeling beneath the disorientation and uncertainty. "Yeah, I think I am. Call me if that changes." "I will. Love you." "Love you too." "And Sav, enjoy the fancy bathtub. You earned it." Savannah did exactly that, filling the enormous tub with hot water and expensive bath products she found in the cabinet. She soaked until her fingers pruned, letting the heat work through muscles that had been tense for months, maybe years. When she finally climbed into bed, She fell asleep almost immediately, wrapped in sheets that cost more than her entire wardrobe and surrounded by silence that felt more peaceful than anything she'd known in her parents' house. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange blur of wedding preparations and gradual adjustment. Teresa helped her shop for clothes, appropriate to her new position, designer labels. Savannah had only window shopped before, dresses and shoes and accessories that transformed her closet from sparse to curated. Cole reviewed the guest list with her, explaining who each person was and why their attendance mattered. "Richard and Eleanor will be there," he said over breakfast one morning. "Your father's already trying to schedule meetings with my business associates. I've been deflecting, but after the wedding, I'll have to throw him something." "What will you give him?" "Access to one of my development projects. Nothing important enough to matter if he screws it up, but visible enough to make him feel important." "That's calculated." "Everything I do is calculated, Savannah. You'll learn that." She was learning a lot of things, like the fact that Cole worked 18-hour days regularly, often disappearing into his office for hours at a time, emerging only for meals or brief conversations. Like the way his staff treated her with careful respect, as if her position as Cole's future wife granted her authority she didn't feel ready for. Like the steady stream of deliveries, flowers from business associates congratulating them on the engagement, gifts from people trying to curry favor, invitations to events they'd be expected to attend as a couple. Hannah visited 3 days before the wedding, wide-eyed at the house and skeptical about the situation. "This is insane," she said, standing in Savannah's sitting room. "Like, certifiably insane." "I know." "And you're really going through with it?" "Signed the contract. Can't back out now." Hannah sat on the sofa, studied Savannah's face. "You seem different. Calmer, maybe?" "I feel different. Like I can finally breathe. Even knowing what he is, what he does, especially knowing, at least there are no surprises." "Savannah, I know what you're going to say, that I'm making another mistake, that I'm trading one bad situation for another, but, hon, this doesn't feel the same. Cole's not trying to control me or tear me down. He's just here, doing his thing while I do mine. For now. What happens when the honeymoon period ends?" "There is no honeymoon period. This is a business arrangement, remember?" Hannah didn't look convinced, but she dropped it. They spent the afternoon like they used to, talking about nothing important, laughing at stupid jokes, being normal in a situation that was anything but. The night before the wedding, Savannah couldn't sleep. She stood at her windows looking out at the dark grounds, trying to process that tomorrow she'd marry Cole Maddox, that her entire life was about to change again in ways she couldn't predict. A soft knock on the connecting door made her turn. "Come in." Cole appeared in sleep pants and a t-shirt, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. "Saw your light on. Wanted to make sure you're okay. Just nervous." "Second thoughts?" "No, just aware that tomorrow's a big day." Cole walked to the windows, stood beside her looking out at the same view. "It is. But remember, it's also just a day. After tomorrow, life continues. We figure this out as we go. What if we can't figure it out? Then we deal with that when it happens. But Savannah?" He turned to face her. "I'm going to try to make this work. I need you to know that. This isn't just a transaction for me. I respect you, and I'm going to do my best to make sure you don't regret this choice." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. She'd expected calculation, strategy, the careful management of a business asset. Not this quiet promise delivered in the dark. "Thank you," she managed. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be exhausting." After he left, Savannah finally crawled into bed. Tomorrow she'd become Mrs. Cole Maddox, wife of a criminal, partner in a dangerous charade. Tomorrow, her old life would officially end and something new would begin. She closed her eyes and waited for morning. The wedding took place in Cole's backyard on a Saturday afternoon that felt too beautiful for what was essentially a business transaction. Someone had transformed the garden into something out of a magazine. White chairs arranged in neat rows, an arch wrapped in flowers Savannah couldn't name, music playing softly from hidden speakers. 60 guests milled around the terrace, champagne in hand, waiting for the ceremony to begin. Savannah stood in her suite, staring at herself in the full-length mirror. The dress Teresa had helped her choose was champagne silk, simple and elegant, with a fitted bodice and a skirt that moved like water. No veil, no train, no pretense that this was a fairy tale. Just a woman in an expensive dress about to marry a man she barely knew. "You look beautiful," Hannah said from the doorway. She'd arrived an hour earlier, helped Savannah with her hair and makeup, asked no questions about whether this was really what Savannah wanted. "I look terrified." That too. Hannah crossed the room, adjusted the necklace Cole had sent up that morning, a simple diamond pendant that probably cost more than Savannah's car. "But you also look sure, like you've made a decision and you're standing by it." "I signed a contract, kind of limits my options." "You could still run. I've got my car. We could be in Virginia before anyone noticed." Savannah met Hannah's eyes in the mirror. "You'd do that for me." "In a heartbeat." "But I don't think you want me to." She was right. Despite the fear, despite the surreal nature of what was happening, Savannah didn't want to run. She wanted to see this through, wanted to find out if Cole's promises about freedom and independence were real or just more pretty lies designed to trap her. A knock on the door made them both turn. Teresa appeared, her expression warm. "They're ready for you." The walk down the stairs felt like descending into another life. Marcus waited at the bottom, offered his arm with a slight smile. "You clean up nice, Ms. Carter." "Thanks, Marcus. For what it's worth, Boss is good people. Rough around the edges, but he keeps his word." "That's what I'm counting on." The guests rose when she appeared at the garden entrance. Savannah recognized some faces from the engagement dinner Cole had insisted on hosting, business associates with calculating eyes, their wives who'd assessed her like competition, a few people who radiated the kind of danger that came from violence rather than wealth. Her parents sat in the front row on her side, her mother dabbing at tears that seemed more performance than genuine emotion. And at the front, under the flower-wrapped arch, stood Cole. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him like armor, his expression unreadable as he watched her approach. No smile, no visible emotion, just that steady gaze that had assessed her from the first moment they met. Savannah kept her eyes on him, using his stillness as an anchor against the weight of all those watching eyes. The officiant was a judge Cole knew, someone who'd agreed to perform the ceremony as a favor. He kept it brief, no flowery language about love and devotion, just the legal necessities that would bind them together. "Do you, Cole Maddox, take Savannah Carter to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." "And do you, Savannah Carter, take Cole Maddox to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Savannah's throat felt tight. This was it, the moment that would change everything. She could still say no, could walk away, could face whatever consequences came from breaking the contract. But she thought about her parents' house, about Preston's cutting remarks, about the suffocating weight of having no options. "I do," she said, her voice steadier than she expected. Cole slid a ring onto her finger, platinum with a single diamond that caught the afternoon light. She did the same for him, their hands touching briefly, his skin warm against hers. "By the power vested in me by the state of North Carolina, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Cole stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her jaw gently. The kiss was brief, appropriate for the audience, nothing like the possessive claims Savannah had feared. When he pulled back, his eyes searched hers for just a moment. "Okay," he murmured, too quiet for anyone else to hear. She nodded. The reception happened in a blur. Toasts from Cole's business partner, a man named Vincent, who spoke about loyalty and partnership with an edge that suggested he was talking about more than marriage. Toasts from her father, carefully constructed platitudes that avoided any mention of the circumstances that had led them here. Food Savannah barely tasted, champagne that went straight to her head, an endless stream of people congratulating them and assessing the alliance they'd just formed. Her mother cornered her during dessert, pulled her aside with a grip that was tighter than necessary. "You need to be smart about this," Eleanor said, her smile fixed in place for any observers. "Cole Maddox is not Preston. He's dangerous, Savannah. You can't afford to disappoint him." "I know what he is, Mother." "Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you've jumped into something you don't understand. These people," she gestured subtly at Cole's associates, "they're not like us. They don't follow the same rules. Neither do you, apparently. You sold me to save yourselves. That's not exactly following rules either." Her mother's expression hardened. "We gave you an opportunity. What you make of it is your responsibility now. Don't come crying to us when you realize what you've gotten into. Don't worry, I won't be coming to you for anything. Savannah walked away before her mother could respond, her hands shaking. She found Cole near the bar, deep in conversation with Vincent and two other men whose names she couldn't remember. He excused himself when he saw her, guided her to a quieter corner of the terrace. What's wrong? My mother being my mother. It's fine. Cole's jaw tightened. What did she say? That I should be careful not to disappoint you, that you're dangerous, and I don't know what I'm doing. She's right about one of those things. Which one? I am dangerous. But you're not going to disappoint me, Savannah. That's not how this works. Before she could respond, a commotion near the garden entrance drew their attention. Marcus was intercepting someone, his body language tense, one hand raised in a clear stop signal. Cole's expression went cold. Stay here. He crossed the lawn with purposeful strides, his entire demeanor shifting from wedding host to something harder, more threatening. Savannah followed despite his instruction, close enough to hear the conversation. Not invited, Marcus was saying, his voice low and dangerous. You need to leave. I just want to talk to her. Preston's voice. Savannah's stomach dropped. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. You're asking for a broken jaw if you don't turn around right now. Cole reached them, stepped between Marcus and Preston with the casual confidence of someone who knew he held all the power. Hail! Interesting timing. Preston looked different than Savannah remembered. Thinner, harder around the edges, with the kind of bitterness that came from things not going his way. His eyes found her over Cole's shoulder, something ugly flickering across his face. Savannah, congratulations on the wedding. Moving fast, aren't you? You need to leave, Cole said, his tone flat and final. Now. I'm not here to cause problems. Just wanted to see my ex-wife on her big day. That's not a crime. Trespassing is. You weren't invited, you're not welcome, and if you're still standing here in 30 seconds, Marcus is going to escort you off the property in a way you won't enjoy. Preston's face flushed red. You think you're impressive? You think buying a wife makes you legitimate? Everyone knows what you are, Maddox. A thug playing dress-up in expensive suits. Cole didn't react, didn't rise to the bait, just looked at Preston with the kind of assessment usually reserved for insects. 20 seconds. Savannah, you don't have to do this, Preston called past Cole, desperation creeping into his voice. Whatever debt your parents owe him, whatever arrangement they made, you can walk away. I'll help you. We can figure this out together. The laugh that escaped Savannah's throat surprised her. You'll help me. You spent 5 years destroying me piece by piece, and now you want to help? I made mistakes, I know that. But this, he gestured at Cole at the reception. This is worse. You're marrying a criminal, Savannah. Don't you understand that? I understand it better than you think, and I'd rather be married to an honest criminal than a respectable monster. Preston's expression twisted into something ugly. You always were ungrateful, couldn't appreciate what you had, couldn't see how good you had it with me. Now you're going to learn the hard way. Cole moved so fast Savannah barely tracked it. One moment he was standing still, the next his hand was wrapped around Preston's throat, backing him against the garden wall with controlled violence. Listen very carefully, Cole said, his voice deadly calm. Savannah is my wife now. That means she's under my protection. If you come near her again, if you contact her, if you so much as think about her too hard, I will make you regret every decision that led you to that moment. Do we understand each other? Preston's face was turning red, his hands clawing uselessly at Cole's grip. You're threatening me. I'm educating you. There's a difference. Cole released him, stepped back. Marcus, make sure Mr. Hale finds his way out and put his information in the system. If he shows up at any of my properties again, handle it accordingly. Marcus grabbed Preston's arm with the efficiency of someone who'd done this many times before. Come on, time to go. Preston stumbled away, throwing one last look at Savannah that carried equal parts rage and something that might have been regret. Then he was gone, Marcus steering him toward the front of the house while the wedding guests pretended they hadn't noticed the confrontation. Cole turned to Savannah, his expression softening slightly. Are you all right? I think so. Her hands were shaking. I didn't expect him to show up. Neither did I. Marcus is going to look into how he found out about the wedding. Someone talked who shouldn't have. He said he wanted to help me. He wanted to control you. There's a difference. Cole guided her back toward the reception, his hand warm against the small of her back. Preston Hale is the kind of man who can't stand seeing his possessions in someone else's hands. That's all this was. Ego and wounded pride. He's not wrong about what you are. No, he's not, but at least I'm honest about it. The reception continued for another hour, though Savannah felt disconnected from it, her mind replaying Preston's appearance and the cold efficiency with which Cole had handled him. She'd seen her husband threaten violence with the casual ease of someone who'd done it countless times before. Should have been terrifying, was terrifying, but also strangely reassuring. When the last guest finally departed, Savannah stood on the terrace and watched the staff clean up the detritus of the celebration. Cole appeared beside her with 2 glasses of champagne, offered her one. "To surviving our wedding day," he said. "Is it always going to be like this? Dramatic confrontations with people from my past?" "Probably not. Preston made his move, I shut it down. He'll think twice before trying again. And if he doesn't, then I'll handle it more permanently." Savannah took a long drink of champagne, let the bubbles burn down her throat. "You really would hurt him." Without hesitation. Cole turned to face her fully. "I told you I protect what's mine. I meant it. Preston crossed a line today. If he's stupid enough to cross it again, the consequences will be severe. That should scare me more than it does." "But it doesn't?" "No. Is that wrong?" Cole was quiet for a moment, studying her face in the fading light. "It's honest, and I appreciate honesty." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the gardens. Somewhere in the house, Teresa was directing the cleanup crew, her efficient voice carrying through the open windows. Marcus appeared briefly to confirm Preston had been escorted off the property without further incident, then disappeared again. "What happens now?" Savannah asked finally. "Now we settle into being married. You adjust to living here, I continue my work. We figure out how to exist together without driving each other crazy." "That's it? No expectations, no demands? Just the public appearances we agreed to. A few events over the next month where we need to be seen together, establish the marriage as legitimate. Beyond that, you're free to do whatever you want." The freedom he kept offering felt too good to be true. Savannah had spent so long being controlled, being managed, being told exactly how to behave that she didn't know what to do with autonomy. "I might need help with that," she admitted. "The freedom part, I'm not good at it." "Then we'll work on it together." That night, Savannah lay in her bed. Her married bed, though nothing about the situation felt particularly matrimonial, and stared at the ceiling. Through the connecting door, she could hear Cole moving around in his suite, the sound of water running, a phone conversation conducted in low tones. Her husband. She was married again, bound to another man through legal documents and public ceremony, but this time felt different. Cole wasn't trying to change her or control her or reduce her to something manageable. He was just giving her space to exist, to figure out who she was outside of everyone else's expectations. Her phone buzzed with the text from Hannah. "You good? That was intense with Preston." Savannah typed back. "I'm okay. Cole handled it." "That's what worries me. The way he handled it was pretty aggressive." "Preston deserved it." "Maybe. But Sav, that's your life now. Men handling problems with aggression. Just be careful." "I will. Love you." "Love you too. Call me tomorrow." Savannah set her phone aside and tried to sleep, but her mind kept circling back to Preston's face when Cole had him against the wall, the cold certainty in Cole's voice when he'd promised consequences. She should have been horrified, should have recognized the red flags, the warning signs, all the things therapists wrote about in articles about dangerous relationships. Instead, she felt protected, safe in a way she hadn't felt since before her first marriage, maybe longer. The weeks that followed established a rhythm Savannah hadn't expected. Cole left early most mornings, often before she was awake, disappearing into his office or driving to meetings across the state. Teresa managed the household with quiet efficiency, treating Savannah with respect that didn't feel earned but was offered anyway. Marcus became a constant presence, driving her to lunches with Hannah or shopping trips or the occasional charity event Cole needed her to attend. The charity events were the hardest. Savannah had to smile and make conversation with the same people who'd whispered about her divorce from Preston, who'd assessed her worth based on her family name and her husband's bank account. Now they assessed her differently, as Cole Maddox's wife, as someone who'd traded up in wealth, if not in respectability. "How are you finding married life?" one woman asked at a fundraiser for the Children's Hospital, her tone suggesting the question carried more weight than casual interest. "It's an adjustment," Savannah replied, using the neutral tone she'd perfected. "But a good one. Cole certainly seems taken with you. He barely lets you out of his sight at these things." Savannah glanced across the room to where Cole was deep in conversation with a city councilman. His posture relaxed, but his attention periodically shifting to find her in the crowd. Making sure she was okay, she realized. Making sure no one was bothering her. "He's protective," Savannah said. "I imagine he would be. Given his business interests, I mean. He must have many enemies." The subtle probe for information was obvious. Savannah smiled blandly. "I wouldn't know. We don't discuss his work much." It was a lie. Cole had started sharing more about his operations, explaining the legitimate businesses and the less legitimate ones, treating her like an intelligent partner rather than a liability to be managed. He'd shown her the security systems in the house, explained why certain rooms were off limits during business meetings, introduced her to key people in his organization with clear instructions on who to trust and who to be cautious around. "Vincent's been with me for 15 years, he'd explained one evening. "You can trust him with anything. Same with Marcus and Teresa. But some of the others, the ones who come to the house for meetings, they're business relationships only. Polite but distant, understand?" Savannah was learning the hierarchy, the unspoken rules, the way power flowed through Cole's organization like water finding its level. She was also learning about Cole himself, the way he read contracts with meticulous attention to detail, the phone calls he took at 3 in the morning without complaint, the rare moments when he'd appear in the kitchen looking exhausted and pour himself whiskey in silence. "You don't sleep much," she observed one night, finding him at the kitchen island at 2 a.m., laptop open, glass of amber liquid beside him. "Occupational hazard, hard to turn off." "What are you working on?" "Development deal downtown, trying to restructure the financing before the banks get nervous." "One of the legitimate ventures?" "Mostly. There's some creative accounting involved, but nothing that'll get anyone arrested." He looked up from the laptop. "Did I wake you?" "No, couldn't sleep either." Cole pushed the other kitchen stool toward her, an invitation. Savannah sat, and they existed in comfortable silence while he worked, and she scrolled through her phone, reading articles she'd never finish, checking social media she didn't care about. "Can I ask you something?" she said after a while. "Sure." "Why did you really want to get married? The social legitimacy thing makes sense, but there had to be easier ways." Cole set down his pen, considered the question. "I'm 41 years old. I've spent the last 20 years building an empire that exists in the shadows. I'm good at what I do, successful by any measure. But there's a ceiling I can't break through without legitimacy. Doors that won't open, deals that won't happen, influence I can't access. Marriage to someone like you, old money, respected family name, it changes the equation. So it really is just business. It started that way, but you're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone more fragile, more damaged, someone who'd need constant management and careful handling." He met her eyes. "You're stronger than you think you are, Savannah. I see it even if you don't yet." The observation caught her off guard. No one had called her strong in years, maybe ever. Weak, disappointing, inadequate, those words she knew. But strong? "I don't feel strong," she admitted. "You left a bad marriage despite your parents' pressure. You agreed to marry a stranger to escape an impossible situation. You're adapting to a life that would terrify most people. That's strength, even if it doesn't feel like it." Savannah looked down at her hands, at the wedding ring that still felt foreign on her finger. "Preston told me I was nothing without him. For years, he said it until I believed it." "Preston was wrong." "How do you know?" "Because you're sitting here having this conversation instead of falling apart. Because you stood up to your mother at the wedding. Because you didn't run when I put Preston against that wall. You just watched and processed and moved on." Cole closed his laptop. "You survived things that were designed to break you. That's not nothing, Savannah. That's everything." Something in Savannah's chest cracked open, letting in light she hadn't realized she needed. She'd spent so long believing the worst about herself, accepting other people's judgments as truth, that she'd forgotten she was more than their opinions. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing me. Really seeing me." Cole reached across the island, covered her hand with his briefly. "You're my wife. That means something to me, even if the marriage started as a transaction. I protect what's mine, remember?" "I remember." They sat together until Cole finished his work, and Savannah's exhaustion finally pulled her back toward bed. As she climbed the stairs, she heard him moving around the kitchen, putting away his laptop, rinsing his glass. Domestic sounds from a man who was anything but domestic. The weeks turned into a month, then 6 weeks. Savannah fell into routines she hadn't expected. Morning coffee with Teresa in the kitchen, afternoon walks through the grounds, evening dinners with Cole when his schedule allowed. She started redecorating her suite, adding personal touches that made it feel less like a hotel and more like home. She reconnected with old friends who'd drifted away during her marriage to Preston, hosted a small lunch party that Cole encouraged but didn't attend. "This is your space," he'd said when she'd asked if he wanted to be included. "Build your own life here. You don't need my permission or my presence for everything." She was learning what that meant, what it felt like to make decisions without consulting anyone, to spend money without justifying it, to exist without constant surveillance and judgment. It was strange and liberating and occasionally overwhelming. Then, 7 weeks into the marriage, her father called. "Savannah, we need to talk about the Riverside development." "What about it?" "Cole's partner Vincent has been stonewalling me. I was promised access to that project, promised a legitimate role in the development. But every time I try to schedule a meeting, I get excuses." Savannah pressed the phone tighter to her ear. "Did you ask Cole about it?" "I can't get him on the phone. He's always in meetings or traveling. I need you to talk to him. Remind him of our agreement." "Your agreement, not mine." "Savannah, this is important. My creditors are still circling. I need this deal to go through or I'm looking at bankruptcy." "Then maybe you should have managed your money better instead of selling your daughter to avoid consequences." The silence on the other end was heavy. When her father spoke again, his tone was ice. "Don't be naive. This marriage benefits you as much as it benefits us. You're living in luxury, wearing designer clothes, attending events you'd never have access to otherwise. The least you can do is help your family. I've helped you enough. You wanted me married to Cole. I married him. What happens with your business problems is between you and him." "Savannah!" She hung up, her hands shaking. 5 minutes later, Cole appeared in her sitting room, clearly having heard about the call through whatever network of information he maintained. "Your father's upset," he said without preamble. "Let me guess. He called you too?" "Tried to. I didn't answer." Cole sat in the chair across from her. "For what it's worth, Vincent's stalling him on purpose. Your father's been making demands, acting entitled, treating my people like they work for him. That's not how this works." "What are you going to do?" "Give him a small project with limited responsibility. Enough to keep his creditors quiet, not enough for him to do real damage. But Savannah, you need to understand something. Your parents are going to try to use you as leverage, try to guilt you into advocating for them. You don't owe them that." "I know." "Do you?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you still sound like someone who feels responsible for their problems." Savannah looked out the window at the gardens, at the life she'd built in the past 7 weeks. Cole was right. Some part of her still felt like she needed to fix her parents' mistakes, still believed their failures were somehow her fault. "I'm working on it," she said finally. "Work faster, because they're not going to stop pushing, and I need to know you can handle that pressure without breaking." "I won't break." "Good." Cole stood, started toward the door, then paused. "There's a gala next week. Hospital fundraiser, very visible, very important. I need you there." "I'll be there." "And Savannah? Wear something that makes a statement. We're not hiding anymore." The gala was exactly what Cole promised. A glittering affair at the city's nicest hotel, 500 guests in formal wear, photographers capturing arrivals, society pages being written in real time. Savannah wore a deep emerald dress that had cost more than her first car, her hair swept up, Cole's diamond pendant at her throat. They entered together, Cole's hand at the small of her back, and Savannah felt the attention shift toward them like a physical thing. Cole Maddox and his new wife, The criminal and the society girl, the marriage that had tongues wagging for 2 months. Smile, Cole murmured. Let them see you're not afraid. Savannah smiled, and they worked the room like the power couple they were pretending to be. Cole introduced her to judges and businessmen and people whose influence existed in back rooms and quiet conversations. Savannah made small talk and remembered names and played her role with the competence she'd developed during her marriage to Preston. But this time felt different. This time, she had Cole beside her, his presence a reminder that she wasn't alone, wasn't vulnerable, wasn't the desperate divorcee her parents had been so ashamed of. Halfway through the evening, Savannah excused herself to the restroom. She was fixing her lipstick when her mother appeared in the mirror behind her.
"You look well," Eleanor said, her tone neutral. "Thank you. Your father told me about your conversation, about your refusal to help." "I'm not refusing to help. I'm refusing to be your intermediary with my husband." "That's the same thing." Savannah turned to face her mother. "No, it's not. You and Dad got what you wanted. I married Cole. Your debts are being restructured. You're not facing immediate bankruptcy. What you do with that opportunity is your responsibility, not mine. We're your family. You stopped acting like family the moment you decided I was a burden instead of a daughter. Cole treats me better as a business arrangement than you ever did as family. So forgive me if I'm not falling over myself to run interference for you." Her mother's face went hard. "You've changed. This life, this man, he's making you cold." "No, Mother.
He's teaching me that I don't have to accept being treated like garbage just because it's coming from people who are supposed to love me." Savannah walked out, her heart pounding, her hand steady. She found Cole near the bar, extracted him from a conversation with a gentle touch to his arm. "Dance with me," she said. He looked surprised, but followed her to the dance floor. The orchestra was playing something slow and classical. Cole pulled her into a formal dance position, and they moved together with surprising coordination. "What happened?" he asked quietly. "My mother. Being my mother." "Want me to handle it?" "No, I handled it." Cole's expression shifted, something like pride flickering across his features. "Good." They danced in silence, and Savannah let herself sink into the moment, the music, the movement, the solid presence of Cole's hand at her waist. Around them, other couples swirled and cameras flashed, capturing images that would appear in tomorrow's society pages. Mr. and Mrs. Cole Maddox, the unlikely couple, the marriage that shouldn't work but somehow did. When the song ended, Cole kept her close for a moment longer. "You did well tonight. I know these events are hard. They're getting easier. That's because you're getting stronger." There it was again, that word, strong. Savannah was starting to believe it might actually be true. The rest of the gala passed smoothly. They made appropriate donations, posed for photographs, accepted congratulations on their marriage with practiced grace. By the time they returned home, it was past midnight, and Savannah's feet ached from designer heels she wasn't used to wearing. She kicked off her shoes in the foyer, padded barefoot toward the stairs. Cole caught her hand, stopped her. "Thank you," he said. "For tonight, for everything. It's what I agreed to. It's more than that now, and we both know it." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "This marriage, it's becoming something neither of us planned for." Savannah's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I care about you, not as a business asset or a social connection, but as a person, as my wife." He released her hand, stepped back. "I'm not asking for anything, not expecting anything, just wanted you to know." He disappeared into his office before Savannah could respond, leaving her standing in the darkened foyer, her heart hammering against her ribs. She climbed the stairs slowly, processing what he'd just said, what it meant for the careful boundaries they'd maintained. In her suite, she changed into pajamas and sat by the window, watching the grounds bathed in moonlight. Somewhere in the house, Cole was working or thinking or dealing with the same confusion she felt. Their marriage of convenience was developing complications neither of them had anticipated, and Savannah wasn't sure if that terrified her or gave her hope. The night after Cole's confession, Savannah barely slept. She kept replaying his words, trying to parse the meaning behind them, wondering what happened next when a marriage of convenience developed actual feelings. By morning, she decided to pretend the conversation never happened, to maintain the careful distance they'd established. Cole had other plans. He appeared at breakfast looking tired, his usual composure slightly cracked around the edges. Teresa set coffee in front of him and disappeared with the intuition of someone who knew when to make herself scarce. "We should talk about last night," Cole said. "We don't have to." "Yes, we do. I put something out there and now we're both pretending it didn't happen. That's not sustainable." Savannah set down her coffee cup with careful precision. "What do you want me to say? That I feel the same way? That I'm ready for this to be a real marriage? Because I don't know if I am, Cole. I'm still figuring out how to be a person again, let alone someone's wife in any meaningful way. I'm not asking you to be anything you're not ready for. I'm just being honest about where I'm at." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. This was supposed to be simple. Business arrangement, mutual benefit, clean boundaries. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being simple for me. "When?" "I don't know exactly. Maybe when you stood up to your mother at the wedding. Maybe when you didn't flinch after I threatened Preston. Maybe it was gradual, happening in all those small moments when you were just being yourself instead of who everyone expected you to be." He met her eyes across the table. "You're not what I thought you'd be, Savannah. You're better." The sincerity in his voice made her chest tight. "I don't know how to do this, how to trust that someone actually cares without an agenda." "Then take your time figuring it out. I'm not going anywhere." Before Savannah could respond, Cole's phone buzzed with an urgency that made his expression shift immediately. He glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening. "What is it?" Savannah asked. "Problem at one of the clubs. I need to handle this." He stood, already moving toward the door. "Marcus will be here if you need anything. Don't leave the property without him. Understand?" "Cole, what's wrong?" But he was already gone, the sound of his Mercedes tearing down the driveway, carrying through the open windows. Savannah sat in the empty kitchen, her coffee growing cold, an uneasy feeling settling in her stomach. The day stretched out with agonizing slowness. Teresa moved through the house with quiet efficiency, but even she seemed tense, checking her phone more often than usual. Marcus appeared periodically, his presence more visible than normal, always positioned where he could see the driveway. "What's going on?" Savannah finally asked him around noon. "Boss is handling some business, nothing for you to worry about." "That's not an answer." Marcus considered her for a long moment. Someone made a move on one of Cole's operations, tried to undercut him with his suppliers, spread rumors about his business practices. He's dealing with it. Is it dangerous? "It's always dangerous, ma'am, but Cole knows what he's doing." Savannah spent the afternoon trying to distract herself with a book she couldn't focus on, a show she didn't watch, restless, pacing through rooms that suddenly felt too large and empty. She checked her phone obsessively, but Cole hadn't sent any updates, any reassurance that he was okay. By 5 o'clock, her nerves were frayed. By 7, she was actively worried. By 9, when Cole's Mercedes finally pulled into the driveway, Savannah was standing at the window watching for him. He looked exhausted when he came through the door. Jacket discarded, tie loosened, a tension in his shoulders that spoke of a day spent managing crises. Savannah met him in the foyer before she could talk herself out of it. "Are you okay?" she asked. Cole looked surprised to see her there, waiting for him. "I'm fine. Just a long day. Marcus said someone made a move against you. Marcus talks too much." But there was no heat in it. Cole moved toward his office, Savannah following. "It's handled. One of my competitors thought my marriage made me soft, that I was distracted. They were wrong." "What did you do?" "What I had to." He poured himself whiskey, drank half of it in one swallow. "I'm not going to give you details, Savannah. Some things are better if you don't know." "I'm not asking for details. I'm asking if you're all right." Cole set down his glass, really looked at her for the first time since coming home. "Why do you care?" "Because despite my better judgment, I do. You said this morning that somewhere along the way this stopped being simple for you. Well, it stopped being simple for me too." The admission hung between them. Cole crossed the space separating them, stopped close enough that Savannah had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "Tell me what you want," he said quietly. "Because I'm trying to be patient, trying to give you space to figure things out. But Savannah, you need to help me understand what you're thinking." "I'm thinking that I've spent the last 10 years being controlled by people who claim to care about me. I'm thinking that trusting someone again terrifies me. I'm thinking that you've shown me more respect in 3 months than Preston did in 5 years, and I don't know how to process that. So process it slowly. We have time. Do we? Your world moves fast, Cole. People make moves against you. Problems need handling. Danger exists in ways I'm still learning about. Time feels like a luxury we might not have. Cole's hand came up to cup her jaw, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. Then let me be clear about something. Whatever happens in my business, whatever threats or problems arise, you're protected. That's non-negotiable. You have all the time you need to figure out what you want from this marriage. And if I want it to be real, if I want more than our arrangement, then we make it real. On your timeline, at your pace. Savannah leaned into his touch without thinking, her body making a choice her mind was still processing. I'm scared. I know, but you're also brave, whether you believe it or not. Cole's other hand settled at her waist, steady and warm. I would never hurt you the way Preston did, never make you feel worthless or controlled or trapped. That's a promise, Savannah. Promises are easy to make. Then let me prove it with actions. He kissed her then, gentle and questioning, giving her every opportunity to pull away. Savannah didn't pull away. Instead, she kissed him back, letting herself fall into the moment, into the strange and terrifying possibility that maybe this could work. When they finally broke apart, Cole rested his forehead against hers. Stay with me tonight, not for anything except being together. I just want you close. Savannah nodded beyond words. They went upstairs together, and for the first time since their wedding, Cole unlocked the connecting door between their suites. They lay in his bed fully clothed, talking until exhaustion finally pulled them under, Savannah's head on his chest, his arm wrapped protectively around her. The next morning brought a new crisis. Savannah woke to raised voices downstairs, Cole's tone sharp with anger. She pulled on a robe and descended to find her father in the foyer, Marcus blocking his path to the interior of the house. I need to speak with Cole, Richard was saying. This is urgent. Boss is busy. You can schedule an appointment like everyone else. I'm his father-in-law, for heaven's sake. You're someone who wasn't invited. Marcus's tone was flat. You need to leave. What's going on? Savannah asked from the stairs. Her father's expression shifted when he saw her. Savannah, thank goodness. Tell them to let me through. I need Cole's help immediately. With what? The Riverside development collapsed. Vincent pulled out completely, said I'd breached our agreement. My creditors are calling in their loans, and I'm 48 hours from bankruptcy. I need Cole to intervene, to fix this. Cole appeared from his office, his expression cold. There's nothing to fix, Richard. You violated the terms of our arrangement. I did no such thing. You used my name to secure additional loans without authorization. You promised investors access to my other projects without consulting me. You treated my organization like your personal bank. Cole's voice was deadly calm. That's not what we agreed to. Richard's face flushed red. I was trying to expand the business, to build something sustainable. You were trying to leverage my reputation for your own gain, and you got caught. That's on you. Please, Cole, I'm begging you, just this once, help me out. For Savannah's sake, if not for mine. Don't. The word came from Savannah, sharp and clear. Don't use me to manipulate him. Her father turned to her, desperation evident. Savannah, you don't understand. If I declare bankruptcy, your mother and I lose everything. The house, our social standing, everything we've built, everything you built on lies and debt and using people. Savannah descended the rest of the stairs, positioned herself beside Cole. I'm not asking him to save you, Dad. You made your choices. Deal with the consequences. After everything we've done for you, you sold me to save yourselves. That's what you did for me. And I went along with it because I had no other options. But I'm not that desperate person anymore. I have a life here, a husband who actually respects me, a future that doesn't involve being your backup plan. Richard looked between them, his expression hardening as he realized neither would budge. You'll regret this. Both of you. When we lose the house, when your mother's name is dragged through bankruptcy proceedings, when our reputation is destroyed, that'll be on you, Savannah. No, Cole said quietly. It'll be on you. You created this situation through greed and poor judgment. Your daughter has no obligation to fix your mistakes. Marcus escorted Richard out, his protests fading as the front door closed. Savannah stood in the foyer, her hands shaking, adrenaline making her dizzy. "You okay?" Cole asked. "I think so. That was harder than I expected." "You did the right thing. He was trying to guilt you into advocating for him, and you shut it down. My mother's going to hate me."
Your mother will survive. They both will. I'm not letting them end up on the street, Savannah. I'll make sure they have a modest living arrangement, something that keeps them afloat. But I'm not rescuing them from consequences they earned. Savannah turned to face him. Why would you do that? Give them anything after what my father just tried? Because you'd feel guilty if they were destitute, even though you shouldn't.
This way, they're taken care of at a basic level, and you're free from their manipulation. Cole pulled her into his arms. "I protect what's mine, remember? That includes protecting you from the weight of their failures." 2 days later, the fallout continued. Savannah's mother called, her voice tight with controlled fury. "Your father is filing for bankruptcy. We're losing the house, Savannah. Everything we worked for. Gone. I'm sorry you're going through this."
Are you? Because you could stop it with one conversation. You have Cole's ear. You could convince him to help. I could, but I'm not going to. The silence on the other end was heavy. I see. So this is who you've become. Cold, selfish, willing to watch your own parents suffer. No, Mother, this is who I've always been underneath the people-pleasing and the desperation to earn your approval. Someone who won't let herself be used anymore. Don't call us when you need help.
When Cole gets tired of you and you're back where you started, don't come crying to us. I won't. Goodbye, Mother. Savannah ended the call and sat in her room, waiting for the guilt to crush her. It didn't come. Instead, she felt lighter, like she'd put down a weight she'd been carrying for decades. The third crisis arrived a week later, and this one was dangerous. Savannah was at lunch with Hannah when Marcus's call came in, his voice urgent. "I need you to stay exactly where you are. Don't leave the restaurant. Don't go outside. I'm 5 minutes away." "What's wrong?" "Preston. He's been watching you. We just found out, and Boss is handling it, but until we know where Hale is right now, you stay put." Savannah's blood ran cold. "Watching me? How long?" "At least a week, maybe longer. Please, ma'am. Just stay inside until I get there." Hannah's expression shifted from confused to alarmed as Savannah explained. "That's insane. He's stalking you." "Apparently. What is Cole going to do?" "I don't know. Nothing good." Marcus arrived with 2 other men Savannah recognized from Cole's security team. They surrounded her on the walk to the SUV, their vigilance making her feel simultaneously protected and terrified. The drive home was tense and silent. Cole was waiting in the foyer when they arrived, his expression darker than Savannah had ever seen it. "Are you hurt?" he asked immediately. "No, scared, but not hurt." "Good. Go upstairs. Lock your door. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe." "Cole, what are you going to do?" "What I should have done at the wedding, eliminated the problem permanently." The cold certainty in his voice made Savannah's stomach drop. "You're going to kill him." "I'm going to make sure he never comes near you again. The method is still being determined." "Cole, upstairs, now. This isn't negotiable, Savannah." She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that murder was too far, that there had to be another way. But she looked at his face and saw someone who'd already made his decision, who'd weighed the options and chosen violence because it was the only language some people understood. Savannah went upstairs. She spent the next 3 hours in her suite, pacing and checking her phone and trying not to imagine what was happening. When Cole finally knocked on her door, it was past midnight. He looked exhausted and grim, blood on his knuckles he hadn't bothered to clean. "Is he dead?" Savannah asked. "No, but he wishes he was." Cole walked to her bathroom, ran water over his hands. "Preston's in a hospital in Tennessee. He'll recover, but with enough injuries that he'll remember this lesson for the rest of his life." And he signed a statement admitting to stalking you, harassment, and threatening behavior. "If he ever comes near you again, that statement goes to the police along with evidence that'll put him away for years. You beat him up and forced him to sign a confession. I gave him a choice. Sign the statement and accept the consequences of his actions, or face worse. He chose the statement." Savannah should have been horrified, should have seen this as confirmation that Cole was exactly the violent criminal everyone warned her about. Instead, she felt only relief that Preston was gone. that the threat was neutralized, that she could finally stop looking over her shoulder. "Thank you," she said quietly. Cole turned from the sink, surprise evident on his face. "You're thanking me?" "He was stalking me, watching me, planning something, and you stopped him, so yes, thank you. I put him in the hospital, Savannah, used violence to solve a problem. That doesn't bother you." "It bothers me less than the alternative, less than living in fear, less than waiting for Preston to make whatever move he was planning." She crossed to him, took his injured hand in hers. "You protected me. That's what matters." Cole pulled her into his arms, held her tight. "I was terrified. When Marcus called and said Preston had been following you, that we didn't know his location, I thought," his voice cracked slightly, "I couldn't lose you. Not to him, not to anyone. You're not going to lose me. Promise me. Whatever happens, whatever other threats arise, you'll let me protect you. You'll trust me to keep you safe." "I promise." They stood together in her bathroom, holding each other, until Cole's phone buzzed with confirmation that Preston had been checked into the hospital under a false name, that the statement was secured, that the threat was truly neutralized. The months that followed were quieter, easier. Savannah settled fully into her role as Cole's wife, not just in public appearances, but in private moments that mattered more. She learned the rhythms of his business, understood when to ask questions, and when to simply be present. She built her own life too, started volunteering at a women's shelter, reconnected with parts of herself that had been dormant for years, discovered what she actually wanted beyond survival. Her parents declared bankruptcy and moved to a modest condo Cole purchased for them. Their social standing diminished, but their basic needs met. Savannah sent a brief email acknowledging the move, received no response, and felt nothing but relief at the distance. Preston disappeared from her life completely, the signed statement sitting in Cole's safe like insurance against future stupidity. And slowly, carefully, Savannah and Cole built something real from the transactional foundation they'd started with. 6 months into the marriage, Cole came home from a business trip to find Savannah waiting in his office, an envelope in her hands. "What's this?" he asked. "Open it." Inside was a letter from the women's shelter where she'd been volunteering, thanking her for the substantial donation made in her name. Below it was documentation for a foundation being established to help women escape abusive relationships, providing housing and legal support and job training. "I've been thinking about what to do with the money you give me," Savannah said. "Most of it sits in the account unused because I don't need that much. But this, helping women who are where I was, trapped and desperate, and convinced they're worthless, this feels right. If you're okay with it." Cole set down the papers, pulled her into his lap. "It's your money, Savannah. You don't need my permission." "I know, but this is important to me, and I wanted you to understand why." "I do understand, and I think it's perfect." He kissed her forehead. "You're perfect." "I'm really not. I'm still figuring out how to be a person, still learning how to trust, still scared of a lot of things." "That's what makes you perfect. You're real, flawed, honest about your struggles. That's worth more than any polished pretense." 8 months into the marriage, Savannah woke up sick for 3 mornings in a row. She dismissed it as a stomach bug until Hannah insisted she take a pregnancy test just to be sure. The positive results stared back at her from the bathroom counter, impossible and terrifying and wonderful all at once. She told Cole that night over dinner, just blurted it out before she could lose her nerve. "I'm pregnant." Cole's fork clattered against his plate. "You're... what?" "Pregnant. About 6 weeks, I think. I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow to confirm, but the test was positive." "We didn't plan this." "I know. The contract said no expectations about physical intimacy, and then things changed between us, and we stopped being careful, and now..." Savannah's voice wavered. "Now I'm pregnant, and I don't know if you want this, if you're ready for this, if this completely destroys our arrangement." Cole was around the table before she could finish, pulling her to her feet and into his arms. "Breathe. Just breathe for a second." Savannah tried, her face pressed against his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. "I want this," Cole said quietly. "I want you. I want this marriage to be real. And I want our child. If you want it too." "I do. I'm terrified, but I do." "Then we're having a baby." He pulled back to look at her, something like wonder on his face. We're actually having a baby. The doctor confirmed it the next day. 6 weeks pregnant, healthy, due in 7 months. Cole held her hand during the appointment, asked questions about prenatal care and risk factors and everything he'd need to know to keep both Savannah and their baby safe. Driving home, Savannah stared at the ultrasound photo they'd been given, a tiny blur that would become their child. "This wasn't part of the plan," she said. "Plans change. This one changed the moment I realized I was falling in love with you." Savannah turned to him, her heart hammering. "You love me?" "I love you. Have for months, was just waiting for the right time to say it. Seemed like now was that time." "I love you too. I think I have for a while. I was just too scared to admit it." Cole reached across the console, laced his fingers through hers. "No more being scared. We're doing this together. The marriage, the baby, all of it." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Savannah's body changed, adapting to the life growing inside her, and Cole adapted with her. He rearranged his schedule to attend every appointment, transformed one of the guest rooms into a nursery, read parenting books with the same intensity he applied to business contracts. "You're nesting," Savannah teased one evening, finding him assembling a crib with meticulous precision. "I'm preparing. There's a difference." "Keep telling yourself that." She was 5 months along when Hannah threw her a baby shower, inviting friends Savannah had reconnected with and a few of the wives from Cole's business circle who'd become genuine friends. Teresa helped coordinate, and the afternoon was filled with laughter and terrible baby name suggestions, and the kind of easy joy Savannah had thought she'd never experience. "You look happy," Hannah said, watching Savannah open gifts. "Really happy." "I am. That's weird, right? Given how this all started?" "Maybe. But happiness counts no matter how you get there. And Cole's good for you. I can see that now." At 7 months, Savannah woke to cramping that made her call Cole home from a meeting in Charlotte. He made the 2-hour drive in 90 minutes, found her timing contractions with Teresa's help. "It's too early," Savannah said, fear sharp in her voice. "The baby's not due for 2 more months. We're going to the hospital, now." Cole's tone left no room for argument. The contractions were Braxton Hicks, false labor that terrified them both but ultimately meant nothing dangerous. The doctor put Savannah on modified bed rest for a week, just to be cautious, and Cole barely left her side the entire time. "You don't have to babysit me," Savannah protested on day 3. "I'm not babysitting. I'm being present for my wife who scared the hell out of me." "Everything's fine. The baby's fine." "I know, but I'm staying anyway." 2 months later, on a Tuesday morning 3 days before her due date, Savannah's water broke while she was having breakfast. Cole went into crisis management mode, grabbing the hospital bag they'd prepared weeks earlier, calling the doctor, getting them to the hospital with the efficient calm of someone who'd planned for every contingency. Labor was long and difficult. 18 hours of contractions that made Savannah curse Cole's entire existence, made her swear she'd never do this again, made her question every decision that had led to this moment. Cole stayed with her through all of it, let her squeeze his hand until his fingers went numb, never once suggesting she was being dramatic or unreasonable. When their daughter finally arrived, 6 pounds, 8 ounces, with dark hair and Cole's eyes, Savannah forgot every second of pain. "She's perfect," Cole whispered, tears on his face as he held their daughter for the first time. "She's absolutely perfect." They named her Grace, and she transformed everything. The first months were exhausting and wonderful and occasionally terrifying. Savannah learned to function on 3 hours of sleep, learned to breastfeed despite the difficulty, learned that motherhood was nothing like she'd imagined and everything she needed. Cole was hands-on in ways that surprised them both, changing diapers at 3 a.m. and walking Grace around the house when she couldn't settle, adjusting his work schedule to be present for the moments that mattered. "You're a natural," Savannah told him one night, watching him rock Grace to sleep with practiced ease. "I'm terrified I'm going to mess her up." "That's what makes you a good father. You care enough to worry about it." When Grace was 3 months old, Savannah received an unexpected letter from her mother. Brief, stilted, asking if she could meet her granddaughter. No apology, no acknowledgement of how they'd left things, just a request wrapped in carefully neutral language. Savannah showed Cole the letter, uncertain how to respond. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to say no, to protect Grace from them the way I should have been protected.
but another part thinks maybe this could be different. Then try it. One supervised visit here at the house. If it goes badly, you don't have to repeat it, but at least you'll know you gave them a chance. The visit was awkward and uncomfortable. Eleanor held Grace with the stiffness of someone unaccustomed to babies, made small talk that carefully avoided any real topics, left after exactly 1 hour with promises to stay in touch that Savannah didn't believe. "That was awful," Savannah said after her mother left. "Yeah, it was. Want to try again?" "Maybe, eventually, but not for a while." Fair enough. Grace's first birthday arrived with shocking speed. Cole and Savannah threw a party in the garden where they'd been married, invited friends and business associates, and Hannah's entire family. Watching their daughter smash cake while surrounded by people who genuinely cared felt like the final piece of healing Savannah hadn't known she needed. That night, after Grace was asleep and the house was quiet, Cole found Savannah on the terrace, looking out at the gardens. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different my life is from what I expected. How I thought marrying you was accepting defeat, giving up on any chance at real happiness. How wrong I was." Cole wrapped his arms around her from behind. "I was wrong too. Thought this would just be a business arrangement, that I could keep my feelings separate from the practicalities. Didn't account for falling in love with my own wife. Lucky for us, you're not always right. Lucky for both of us." They stood together in the darkness, listening to the night sounds, comfortable in the silence they'd built together. Two people who'd started as strangers, bound by contracts and desperation, who'd somehow built something real from the wreckage of their pasts. Savannah thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago, broken, desperate, convinced she was worthless, thought about how far she'd come, how much she'd grown, how she'd learned to see her own strength reflected in Cole's steady belief in her. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing me when I was invisible, for protecting me when I was vulnerable, for loving me when I didn't think I deserved it." Cole turned her in his arms, kissed her with the kind of tenderness that still made her breath catch. "You deserved all of it and more. I just had the good sense to recognize what everyone else was too stupid to see." Inside the house, Grace made a small sound through the baby monitor, then settled back into sleep. Their daughter, their future, proof that sometimes the most unexpected paths led to exactly where you were meant to be. Savannah leaned into Cole's embrace and thought about the foundation she'd built, helping women escape the kind of situation she'd barely survived. Thought about the life she'd created from nothing but determination and the chance Cole had offered her. Thought about all the ways she'd stopped being the person others expected and became someone she actually recognized. "I'm happy," she said, the words still feeling new and strange. "Actually, genuinely happy." "Good, because this is just the beginning." And standing there in the darkness, wrapped in her husband's arms, their daughter sleeping peacefully inside the home they'd built together, Savannah finally believed him. This was just the beginning of a life she'd fought for, earned, and would never take for granted again. She was no longer the desperate woman who'd agreed to marry a stranger to escape her circumstances. She was Cole Maddox's wife, Grace's mother, the founder of a charity that helped women find their own strength. She was someone who'd survived betrayal and built something beautiful from the ashes. She was finally and completely herself.